Thank you for joining me for this story. I hope you could take a quiet moment, settle in, and let this journey unfold. If you enjoy emotional science fiction stories, please consider liking the video, leaving a comment, sharing it with someone who might enjoy it, and subscribing to the channel. In this story, a starving village is about to lose its last hope, until a human engineer stands between mercy and a law that has forgotten the people it was meant to protect. The alien queen came to punish a starving village and found Marcus Hale feeding them. Marin Hollow stood on the dry western rim of Averon, a planet 612 light-years from Earth. It had once been a grain village built around low stone homes, windbreak walls, and a water station that pulled clean water from deep under the salt flats. Now the fields beyond the village were gray and cracked. Old irrigation lines lay half buried in dust, and the dry well in the square had become a place where people gathered with empty buckets and tried not to look afraid. Marcus Hale, a human relief engineer from Earth, had been in Marin Hollow for 7 months. He had arrived with a small repair crew after a border conflict damaged the water station, but the crew left when the funding ended. Marcus stayed because the pump was still broken. The children were still hungry, and the village had no one else who knew how to keep the old filters alive. On the morning the tax caravan came, he was lying on his back under a leaking pipe, one arm deep inside the rusted housing. His shirt was stained with mineral water and red dust. His hands shook more than he wanted anyone to see. He kept them inside the pipe until the shaking passed. The caravan appeared at the top of the road as a line of black metal crawlers and tall, narrow-packed beasts. The banner at the front carried the silver mark of the provincial throne. Behind it rode Queen Regent Viola Thorne, ruler of the western provinces of Averon. She was tall, with slate-blue skin, high cheekbones, and dark ridges that swept back from her brow like a crown grown from bone. Her armor was ceremonial, but not soft. Every plate of it told the village that law had arrived with witnesses. Beside her rode Rovan Kest, the local tax officer. He was smaller than Viola, with pale green skin and a smooth voice that always sounded patient when he meant to be cruel. Behind them came Royal Clerk Elon Moore, Dr. Lisa Runn, 6 armed tax guards, and 2 wagons with empty storage locks. Marcus knew what empty storage locks meant. The caravan had not come to inspect. It had come to take. Viola dismounted in the center square, where the village well stood dry under a patched shade cloth. She looked around once, not with pity, but with a trained ruler's eye. Roofs, buckets, faces, hands, and silence. Rovan stepped forward with a data slate. Marin Hollow has missed 3 seasonal payments, he announced. The records say this village grew enough grain to pay. If the debt is not paid before sunset, stores may be seized, and workers may be taken for labor. A murmur moved through the village. Marcus saw Tavin Rowe, a young field hand, clench both fists. He saw Sarah Vin step from the seed house, her jaw set hard. Sarah was the village seed keeper. She was still young, but her eyes had learned to say no even when saying yes would have made people love her more. Viola raised one hand. The murmur died. Who speaks for this village? Every face turned toward Marcus. He hated that, not because he did not care, but because Rovan had been waiting for it. One human standing between a hungry alien village and a tax order was easy to call a rebellion. Marcus stepped back and turned to Etta Rowe, the village elder. Etta was thin, silver-haired, and bent with years, but her eyes were still clear. Etta speaks for Marin Hollow. Marcus said, I only fix what breaks. Rovan smiled. A humble answer, he said to Viola. He has learned the shape of local obedience. Marcus said nothing. Viola watched him for a moment. In her reports, the human was not a pipe worker. He was a foreign influence, a man handing out supplies without approval, and a possible organizer of tax refusal. Yet he stood with his dirty hands at his sides and gave the village voice back to its elder. That made him harder to read, not easier. Etta bowed as far as her body allowed. My Queen Regent, she said, we have no grain to surrender. Rovan tapped the slate. Your last recorded yield says otherwise. Our fields died, Etta said. Your report says your wells were working. Our wells are not working. Your maintenance file says the pump failed because the village neglected it. Marcus looked at the broken water station. He could feel every eye waiting for him to speak. He stayed quiet. Viola noticed. Why is the human silent? Marcus met her gaze. Because Elder Rowe is answering for her village. Roven gave a soft laugh. You see, my queen, how careful he is. Viola did not answer him. She looked again at the village. A ruler could not afford to be moved by the first sight of suffering. Viola knew that better than most. During her first year in power, 3 towns had used false famine claims to hide grain from the border army. The shortage that followed had killed soldiers, farmers, and children in a chain of violence that still lived in her memory. Since then, Viola had learned to trust records before tears. But Marin Hollow did not feel like a village hiding wealth. It felt like a place holding its breath at the bottom of a well. Roven lifted his voice. By provincial order, Marin Hollow has until sunset. If the owed grain is not surrendered, the seed stores may be taken to cover the debt. Able workers may also be reassigned until payment is made. The word seed moved through the crowd like a blade. Tavin stepped forward. Marcus moved before the guards did. He caught Tavin by the shoulder and held him back. Not now, Marcus said quietly. They're taking next year, Tavin hissed. I know. Then let me stand. You stand by not giving him what he wants. Tavin looked at Roven, then at the guards with their hands near their weapons. Slowly, painfully, he stepped back. Viola saw that too. The human had not stirred rebellion. He had stopped it. Roven saw her watching and spoke quickly. With respect, my queen, his restraint is part of his influence. They listened to him over their own lawful office. Marcus still said nothing. Viola turned toward the seed house. Open all stores. Sarah Vin stepped into the square and placed herself in front of the low stone building behind her. Those are seed stores, she said. Then they will be counted, Viola replied. Sahaswalud. If you count them as food, you will kill us later instead of now. Roven's eyes sharpened. A refusal to open a registered store proves concealment. Marcus saw Sarah's hand tighten around the key. He stepped closer, but not ahead of her. Sarah, he said gently. Her eyes flashed at him. I know. She turned the key herself. The seed house was cooler than the square. Its walls were thick clay and stone, built to hold the last hope of a dry village. Inside, rows of sealed cloth sacks rested on raised shelves. Each sack had a tag that named the field, the planting date, the water need, the soil type, and the expected yield if the pump ran again. Viola entered first, followed by Roven, Elon Moore, Sarah, and Marcus. 2 guards waited at the door, while the rest of the village stood outside in a silence so tight it felt like a held breath. Roven pointed to the sacks. Hidden agricultural stock, he said. Enough to reduce the debt if seized. Sarah turned on him. Not enough to feed the village. Enough to plant if we survive. Seed can be taken when a debt is unpaid. Marcus spoke for the first time inside the store. Seed is not food. Not if you want anyone alive next year. Viola looked at him. You speak now. Only because that word matters. Food and seed both have value. Yes, Marcus said, but only one of them becomes more food. Roven gave another soft laugh. A charming lesson from Earth. Unfortunately, provincial law is older than his opinion. Viola walked between shelves. The tags were neat, too neat for a hidden hoard. Some sacks were almost empty. Others held seed so carefully divided that even a palace quartermaster would have approved. She stopped before one tag written in 2 hands. Sarah's angular script listed the seed strain. Marcus's smaller writing added notes about moisture and repair timing. You made these records together? Viola asked. Sarah lifted her chin. He knows pumps. I know fields. You trusted him with protected seed? I trusted him with the pump that decides whether the seed matters. Roven shifted. My queen, cooperation does not prove innocence. It proves organization. Viola's gaze moved to Marcus. Were you organizing this village? No, Marcus said. They were already organized. I helped with water. Reports say you distributed supplies. Reports say many things. Roven stepped forward. He admits conflict with a record. Marcus looked at him for the first time. A report can lie. A table cannot. The words were quiet, but they stayed in the room. Viola had come prepared to trust the papers. Still, the seed tags troubled her. A starving village that meant to cheat the throne would not usually keep such careful planning records. A man trying to buy loyalty would not usually help protect food no one could eat yet. Viola's mouth tightened. Then show me the tables. Rovan protested. My queen, sunset law is clear. Delay only rewards evasion. Then the innocent have nothing to fear from a short walk, Viola said. Marcus led them back outside and through Marin Hollow. He did not walk like a guide. He walked like someone measuring how much strength each step cost. Viola noticed that he kept one hand near walls and posts whenever he thought no one was looking. They entered the first home. A mother named Laura had placed a pot over a heating stone. Steam rose from it, carrying almost no smell. Her son sat beside her, watching the pot with the solemn patience of a child who had learned that hope could be stretched. Viola looked inside. Water, a strip of root, a pinch of ground husk. Laura lowered her eyes. He sleeps better if the room smells warm. Rovan spoke before Viola could. A stage display. They knew we were coming. Marcus did not look at him. She has been staging it for 6 weeks, then... Viola turned toward Marcus. You knew. I fixed the heat stone after it cracked. There was no food in the pot then either. They visited 3 more homes. In one, an old man hid half a ration wafer under his sleeve for his granddaughter. In another, 2 sisters had tied cloth around their stomachs to dull hunger while they worked the fields. At the dry well, a line of empty buckets waited for water that came only in thin pulses after Marcus coaxed the pump each night. Viola listened. She asked questions. How many wells? How much water? How many children? How many working adults? Elon Moore, the royal clerk, wrote every answer. Rovan answered whenever he could. Poor management. Local waste. Seasonal hardship exaggerated. Human interference. Marcus let him speak until they reached the broken irrigation ditch beyond the village. There, the land opened into fields that should have been green. Instead, cracked soil stretched toward the hills. Dead stalks stood in rows, each no higher than a child's knee. Viola knelt and pressed 2 fingers into the dirt. It broke apart like ash. Rovan looked bored. Drought affected many villages. Sarah stepped forward. Other villages still had pumps. Viola looked at her. You blame the pump for all of this. I blame whatever took the pump from us. Rovan's face hardened. Careful. Sarah ignored him. We sent repair requests. We sent corrected yield reports. We sent warnings that the water was failing. Every time, the answer came back the same. The official file said the pump was fine. Elon stopped writing. Viola saw that pause. Clerk Moore. Elon looked uncomfortable. The central tax file does say normal flow. Viola looked from the dead fields to the empty buckets, then back to Rovan. The records still had power in her mind, but the ground beneath her hands did not match them. And you have copies of these requests? Viola asked Sarah. Sarah glanced at Marcus. Marcus shook his head almost imperceptibly. Not yet. Viola caught the movement. Something you wish to hide. Marcus answered. Something I wish to show in the right order. Rovan seized on it. He admits withholding documents. Marcus turned to Viola. If you see a broken table, you may call it poor carpentry. If you first see the hand that broke it, the table tells a different story. Viola studied him for a long second. You speak like a patient man. No, Marcus said. I speak like a man who ran out of easy choices. As they returned to the square, Sarah stopped near the seed house. Her face had gone pale with anger and exhaustion. Tell her the rest, she said to Marcus. He looked at her. Sarah. No, she should know. You let them think you're soft. You let them think you feed anyone who asks. Tell her how many times you told me no. Viola looked between them. No to what? Sarah's voice shook. To opening the seed. Twice. 3 times. Children were crying. We had seed. I said we should eat some of it. He said no. Rovan smiled as if a door had opened. So the human controlled the village reserves. I did not control them, Marcus said. I told the truth about them. Viola's eyes narrowed. And what truth is that? Marcus looked toward the children near the well. Nomi was among them, holding her tin cup with both hands. If we eat the seed, he said, we do not save the children. We only choose a later grave for them. No one spoke. Even Rovin waited a breath too long before he said, "Such dramatic language." Viola did not agree with him. She was thinking of the pot of hot water, the empty buckets, the dead fields, the seed tags, and the human who had stopped a riot, but refused to open a store that could have made the village love him for one hungry night. This was not the behavior of a man buying loyalty cheaply. It was the behavior of someone willing to be hated for tomorrow. The hearing began in the square when the sun leaned west. Rovin called it a compliance review, and Viola allowed the phrase because law liked clean words, even when the ground under them was dirty. A table was set beside the dry well. Elon placed his records there. Rovin placed his own slate beside them. The guard stood near the seed house. Marcus stood with Sarah and Elder Etta, but he kept enough distance to show he was not speaking over the village. Rovin began, "My Queen Regent, the village has hidden seed. The human has been near that seed many times. He has given out supplies without approval. He has interfered with work duties. This is how tax refusal begins." Viola looked at Marcus. "Did you enter the seed house?" "Yes." "Did you help mark the seed records?" "Yes." "Did you receive relief rations assigned to your technical work?" "Yes." "Did you give any part of those rations to villagers?" A small sound came from Nomi's mother. Marcus did not look at her. He could tell the truth. He could say he had given away his own food, stolen nothing, and asked for nothing in return. But the moment he said it, Rovin would turn every hungry family into a receiver of unlawful aid. The law would not see mothers and children. It would see a network. Marcus looked at Viola and said, "My ration records are mine." Rovin's smile widened. A refusal to answer. An answer with the village removed from it. Viola heard the difference. She also knew the law did not like differences it cannot file. Rovin touched his slate and projected a list. Here are the humans assigned rations. Here are his work hours. Here are sightings near the seed house. Here are claims that he told villagers to ignore their debt. Tavin shouted from the crowd. "Lies!" The guards moved. Marcus raised one hand. "Tavin." The young field hand shook with rage. "He is killing us and calling it paperwork." Tavin, step back. "He is lying about you." "Step back." Tavin looked betrayed. "Why do you keep protecting them?" Marcus's voice stayed low. "I am protecting you from what they can do if you give them a reason." Tavin's eyes filled with helpless anger, but he stepped back. Viola watched another piece fall into place. Marcus had just been accused in public. The village was ready to defend him. He had used his influence not to rally them, but to make them stand down. Rovin saw that Viola had seen it. "My queen," he said quickly. "That is exactly the influence I described." "Or restraint," Viola said. "Restraint can be a weapon. So can a report." The square went still. Rovin bowed his head. "Of course. That is why I brought records from multiple seasons." He handed Elon a sealed packet. Elon opened it and began reading. Yield figures, debt notices, pump confirmations, labor warnings. Every page carried stamps. Every stamp carried authority. To the ear, the village was guilty. To the eye, it was starving. Viola turned to Marcus. "Why did you not submit a challenge?" "I did." Rovin laughed. "There is no accepted challenge in the file." "I did not say it was accepted." "You have copies?" Viola asked. Marcus nodded toward the water station. "Some." Rovin's jaw tightened. Viola caught it. "Where?" "In the pump house." Rovin stepped forward. "My queen, this is another delay. Sunset is close. Once it falls, the seizure order becomes active." Marcus said, "That is why he chose sunset." The words hit the square harder than a shout. Rovin turned cold. "Careful, human. Marcus mitfoelash geish. Walk the fields before you take the seed. Open the pump before you take the future. If I am lying, you still have time to seize everything before dark. And if you are not lying," Viola asked, "then you will know who made a starving village look like a dishonest one." Rovin snapped. "This is manipulation." Marcus looked exhausted now. Not afraid. Exhausted. "No," he said. "Manipulation is taking water from a field, writing down that it still rained, and calling the farmer a thief." Rovin raised his hand toward the guards. "Detain him." Viola did not stop it. The guards took Marcus by the arms. He did not resist. Sarah stepped forward, but he shook his head once. Etta closed her eyes. Nomi began to cry, without sound. Vaila said, Marcus Hale will remain under guard until the review is complete. Rovan looked satisfied. Marcus only asked, do not punish them for surviving. Vaila looked away first. The walk to the pump house was slow because everyone came. Vaila did not order the villagers back. Perhaps she wanted witnesses. Perhaps she was tired of reports speaking for people who had mouths. The pump house stood beyond the last field, a low metal building half sunk into dust. Its outer panels were scarred by old storm marks. Marcus had patched the main intake with scrap mesh and sealant. The work was ugly but careful. Sarah unlocked the outer door. Tavin helped lift the warp panel. Marcus stood under guard a few steps away, pale but watching every movement. Rovan stayed close to Vaila. My queen, the human has worked in this station for months. Anything found here may have been planted. Marcus laughed once. It sounded more like a cough. Rovan turned. You find this amusing? No, Marcus said. Just familiar. Vaila looked at him. Explain. Where I come from, people who steal from the poor often accuse the poor of hiding the evidence. No one translated the sentence. It did not need translation. Dr. Lisa Runn, who had been silent until then, glanced at Marcus with concern. He had sweat on his forehead despite the cooling wind. Vaila said, open the inner housing. Tavin and Sarah worked the bolts while Marcus guided them. Left latch first, not the lower one. It is cracked. Sarah followed his instructions. The panel came free with a metallic groan. Inside, the pump's core was visible. Pipes, regulators, pressure locks, empty spaces where vital parts should have been. Elon Moore leaned in, frowning. There is a regulator missing. Rovan answered too quickly. Removed from maintenance months ago. By whom? Vaila asked. The district office. Returned when... Rovan hesitated. The replacement was delayed. Marcus spoke from behind the guards. There is no replacement. Vaila looked at Elon. Check the seal marks. Elon took a small lens from his case and knelt. Dust clung to the metal, but beneath it a stamped strip remained on the inner bracket. He wiped it clean, and his face changed. Vaila saw the change before he spoke. Clerk Moore. The seal belongs to the district tax storehouse, Elon said. Officer Kest's storehouse. Rovan's skin lost color. All district equipment carries district seals. Elon continued, voice tighter now. The removal tag says the part was taken for emergency military maintenance. But this same serial number appears in a private sale registry 3 weeks later. The crowd did not understand every official word, but they understood the silence that followed. Vaila did too. The pump had not failed because the village neglected it. Someone had taken apart it, needed to move water. The water had fallen. The fields had died. The yield reports had stayed high. Then Rovan had used those false reports to claim the village owed grain it could not grow. Vaila turned to Rovan. He lifted his chin. The border war required difficult reallocations. You sold the regulator. I redirected and used equipment. From a village pump. From a failing village that could not pay its debt. Sarah stepped toward him. We could not pay because you took the water. Rovan snapped. You could not pay because you are weak. The guard shifted. The villagers surged. Marcus tried to step forward and stumbled. Dr. Lisa caught the movement. Stop, she said. Marcus put one hand on the pump housing. The seed house, he whispered. You have to protect the seed house. For weeks, he had worked days and nights to keep the dying pump alive. Each time the pressure dropped, he came back with wire, sealant, and hands that shook from hunger. He had signed for full technical rations because the records required it. Then he had split much of his own food among children, elders, the sick, and the weakest workers. He had not told Vaila because Rovan would have used it against the village. He had not told the village because they would have tried to give it back. His body had carried the cost quietly. Now it had nothing left to spend. His knees gave way. For one terrible moment, everyone moved at once. Sarah reached Marcus first, but Dr. Lisa pushed through with the authority of someone used to bodies failing in public. She knelt beside him and pressed 2 fingers to the side of his neck. Marcus was conscious, but only barely. His skin had gone gray under the dust. and his breath came shallow and fast. "Bring water," Lisa ordered. No one moved. The bitter cruelty of that moment passed through the crowd. A doctor had asked a starving village for water. Vaila turned to her guards. "From my stores." "Now." A guard ran toward the caravan. Marcus tried to rise. Lisa pressed him down. "Do not move." "The seed house," he said again. Sarah bent close. "It is still there?" "I am here." His eyes searched her face as if he could not trust the words. Vaila stood above him. For the first time that day, her armor looked like something heavy. Dr. Lisa opened Marcus's collar and checked the lines under his eyes, the tremor in his hands, and the dryness of his mouth. She looked at his arms, then at the calluses on his palms. "How long has he been working like this?" she asked. Sarah answered, "Every day, and every night," Tavin said from behind her. When the pump dropped, he went back. "How much has he been eating?" Lisa asked. No one answered. Lisa looked up sharply. "How much?" Etta Rowe came forward with a grief that seemed older than the village. "We thought humans needed less." Vaila turned to Marcus. "Is that true?" Marcus's eyes opened. "Sometimes." Dr. Lisa's voice hardened. "No, not like this." Sarah suddenly grabbed Marcus's tool satchel. "His book." Marcus tried to lift one hand. "Sarah, do not." But she had already opened it. Inside was a small ration ledger, repaired at the spine with water seal tape. Sarah knew the outer pages. Pump notes, seed timing, filter pressure. But she had never looked at the back section because Marcus had kept it folded under a tool diagram. She opened it now. Names: Nomi, Laura, Etta, Tavin's younger brother, Old Baron, the pregnant glassmaker Vela, 3 well workers, 2 children with fever. Sarah's own name twice, though she had never known. Beside each name were small amounts. Half portion, quarter portion, extra broth, protein strip, salt tablet, dates, notes. At the bottom of each page, in Marcus's small handwriting, one line appeared again and again. "My portion can wait. Sera stop to breeding." Nomi had come close enough to see the page. Her lips parted. "The packet's at my door," she whispered. Marcus closed his eyes. Rovan found his voice first. "Unauthorized ration transfer." He admits by record. Viola turned on him so sharply that even the guards stepped back. "Be silent." Rovan's mouth closed. Elon Moore took the ledger with careful hands. His eyes moved down the pages, then to the official ration file. "Marcus Hale signed for full technical rations every week," Elon said. Rovan pointed. "Exactly." Elon looked at him. "And the ration losses you blamed on village theft matched the amounts he recorded as his own and used portion." The words took a moment to settle. Marcus had not stolen from the district. He had taken a ration assigned to him, signed for it, then broken it into pieces small enough to keep others alive. When food went missing from Rovan's false counts, Rovan had blamed the village. Marcus had allowed the paper trail to point at himself rather than at hungry families. Viola looked down at the human on the ground. In her reports, he had been a foreign agitator. In Rovan's mouth, he had been a manipulator. In her own mind, he had been a soft, dangerous man who did not understand order. Now his body lay in the dust beside a stripped pump. The order she had trusted stood revealed as a machine that took water first, food second, and truth last. She remembered what Marcus had said. A report can lie. A table cannot. Now his body was the table. "Dr. Rin," Viola said, and her voice was quieter than before. "Can he be moved?" "Not far. He needs fluids, food, rest, and not another hour of being treated like a criminal." The last words were not proper. Lisa said them anyway. Viola looked at the guards holding Marcus's arms. "Release him." They obeyed. Rovan stepped forward. "My queen regent, I must object." Viola did not look at him. "You must do many things. Objecting is no longer first among them." The sun touched the edge of the hills. Sunset Law was minutes away. Rovan saw the light and understood the same thing everyone else did. If the order remained active at sunset, the seed house would be seized automatically. Even with evidence, even with Marcus on the ground, the machinery of law could still move unless Viola stopped it. "My queen," Rovan said, pitching his voice to the guards and clerk as much as to her. If you suspend this order on the word of a human in a starving village, every debtor settlement in the West will challenge your authority. Viola turned at last. Not on their word, she said. On your seal. Rovin's face tightened. Viola stepped toward him. On the missing regulator. On the sale record. On the yield reports that ignored water loss. On the relief food that never reached this village. On the ration thefts you blamed on children. Rovin looked at Elon. Those records require formal review. They will receive one, Elon said. His voice had changed now. It no longer sounded like a man hiding behind paper. But the seizure can be suspended if the debt was built on false records. Rovin stared at him with open hatred. Viola looked toward the seed house. Sarah stood in front of it again, still holding Marcus's ledger. She looked terrified, furious, and ready to fall before she moved. Viola saw the whole village then, not as a debt unit, not as a risk. She saw people standing between a stolen past and a possible future. She had spent years believing that distance made rulers fair. Distance kept the hand steady. Distance prevented one crying child from outweighing a province. But distance had also let Rovin turn hunger into a number and theft into policy. Viola walked back to the square before the last edge of the sun disappeared. Everyone followed. Marcus was carried on a door plank by Tavin and another young man. Dr. Lisa walked beside him, keeping one hand on his pulse. At the dry well, Viola removed the silver seal from her belt. Rovin's eyes widened. My queen, do not make a public error. Viola placed the seal on Elon's table. No, she said. I am correcting one. The square of Marin Hollow had been built for market days. Before the drought, people had brought grain cakes, water jars, dyed cloth, and sea tools there. Now it held a tax caravan, a broken village, a starving human, and a queen regent about to decide which version of law would survive the night. Viola stood where everyone could see her. Elon Moore stood beside the table, stylus ready. Rovin Kess stood between two guards now, though no one had yet touched him. His office chain still hung across his chest. It looked suddenly cheap. Viola spoke clearly. The seizure order against Marin Hollow is suspended. A sound moved through the villagers, too fragile to be joy. Rovin barked. Suspended orders require review from the provincial court. Viola did not raise her voice. This review is being conducted by the provincial throne in person. Elon wrote. Viola continued. The tax debt assigned to Marin Hollow is frozen. We will investigate the false harvest records, the missing pump part, the missing relief stores, and the false charge that villagers stole rations. Rovin turned to the guards. You cannot accept this. If this village is excused, others will refuse payment. Viola looked at the guards, then at the villagers, then at the seed house. Let them refuse false payment, she said. Let every village with a stolen pump refuse a debt built on stolen water. The word struck the square with a force no weapon could have carried. For the first time, the villagers looked not only relieved but seen. Rovin lost his careful tone. You will make the throne look weak. Viola faced him fully. No, you made it blind. The square went silent. Viola turned to Elon. Record the arrest of District Tax Officer Rovin Kest. The charges begin with false harvest records, sale of public water equipment, missing relief stores, and use of debt law against a village whose debt he helped create. Two guards took Rovin by the arms. He struggled once. You are choosing a human over your own officers. Viola looked toward Marcus, lying pale under Dr. Lisa's care. I am choosing the truth my officers buried. Rovin was led away. No one cheered. Hunger does not always know what to do with justice when it arrives late. But Sarah sank to her knees beside the seed house door and pressed one hand to the stone. Etta Rowe covered her face. Tavin stood like someone who had been ready to die and did not yet know how to remain alive. Viola looked at the village. The seed reserves remain under Marin Hollow's protection, she said. The royal store wagon will open tonight. Dr. Wren will supervise food distribution. No household will be charged for emergency relief. A repair team from the Provincial Water Corps will be sent before dawn. Elon wrote quickly. Then Viola paused. She could have stopped there. It would have been enough for one village. It would have been clean, legal, and defensible. But Marcus Hale had not stopped it enough. He had taken the first burden again and again, quietly, until his own body failed. Vaila looked at Elon. Prepara provincial directive. Elon's stylus hovered. Now, my queen. Now. The last light faded. Lanterns were lit around the square. In their glow, Vaila seemed less like a statue of rule and more like a woman deciding what kind of ruler she could still become. No settlement under my seal will lose final food stores, seed reserves, or water workers by report alone, she said. Before debt laws enforced in a famine zone, an officer must inspect the homes, wells, seed stores, and water systems in person. Elon wrote every word. Vaila continued. The officer must see the burden before demanding that others carry it. She looked toward Marcus. Name it the first burden rule. Dr. Lisa looked up from Marcus. Sarah lifted her head. Tavin whispered the words like he did not understand them yet. The first burden rule. Elon asked, should the directive cite Marcus Hale? Vaila looked at Marcus. He was barely conscious, but his face changed at the question. Even half gone, he did not want his name turned into a banner. No, Vaila said, not his name, his principle. Marcus's eyes closed again. Vaila understood, then, that some people did not save others because they wanted memory. Some saved because leaving would have broken something inside them that no one else could see. Later that night, Marcus woke inside one of the village homes. Dr. Lisa had ordered him moved only as far as the nearest safe room, where a lamp burned low and the first bowls of relief food were being passed from family to family. For a moment, he did not know where he was. Then memory came back. The seed, he whispered, sera l'une cruiser. Still ours. The pump, broken, but no longer blamed on us. Rovent, gone. Marcus let out a breath that seemed to leave from very deep inside him. Then he saw the bowl in her hands. No, he said. Serais mutaitant. Do not start. Children first. They ate. Edda. She ate. Well, crew. They ate. He tried to turn his head away. Then save it. Sarah put the bowl down, took his wrist, and pressed his fingers around the warm clay. You do not get to save a village by disappearing from it. The words were firm, but her eyes were wet. Marcus looked away. For the first time since Vaila had arrived, he seemed less like a wall and more like a man who had run out of places to hide. Nomi came forward from behind Sarah. She held her own little cup, half full. She looked healthier already, not because one meal could heal hunger, but because hope had changed the way she stood. She sat in front of Marcus. This time, she said, you eat first. Marcus closed his eyes. No one in the room spoke. Edda sat near the door. Tavin stood with his arms folded, face turned aside. Dr. Lisa watched like a guard posted against Marcus's own habit of refusal. Even Vaila stood at the edge of the room, silent, without armor on her shoulders now. Marcus lifted the bowl with both hands. He ate slowly, a spoonful, then another. The room seemed to breathe with him. It was not a victory feast. It was not a coronation. It was a village teaching a man that mercy could not remain a road that only led away from himself. At dawn, the first water corps crawler arrived. By then, news had already begun to travel. Not the full truth. News never travels whole at first. Some said the Queen Regent had spared a village because of a human. Some said a tax officer had been arrested for stealing water. Some said Marin Hollow had hidden gold under its seed house, which made Tavin laugh for the first time in weeks. The truth was simpler and harder. A starving village had been called dishonest because someone had stolen its water. A human had stayed when leaving would have been easier. A queen had come to take the last grain and had found a man giving away his own. Vaila left Marin Hollow 2 days later, after the pump coughed, shook, and sent a thin brown stream into the first irrigation channel. The villagers did not cheer then either. They watched the water move like they were afraid sound might scare it away. Marcus stood with a blanket around his shoulders, ordered there by Dr. Lisa and guarded there by Nomi. He still looked weak. He still looked like he wanted to be working. Sarah stood beside him with the seed ledger under one arm. Vaila approached them before mounting her crawler. I owe this village more than an apology, she said. Edaro answered from nearby. Then pay it in water. Vaila bowed her head. I will. Marcus gave a faint smile. She means every word. I know what she means, Vaila said. For a brief moment, they looked at each other without the weight of accusation between them. Vaila said, You could have made me your enemy from the start. Marcus looked toward the repair channel. You were the only person with enough authority to stop the order. You trusted me? No, Marcus said. I trusted that if the truth became heavy enough, you would have to carry it. Vaila absorbed that. Then she gave the smallest nod. I will carry it. The caravan left under a pale morning sun. This time, the storage locks were not empty. They carried records, seized seals, and roving chests in chains. Behind them, Mare and Hollow remained poor, tired, and wounded. But the seed house was full. The pump was breathing. The children had eaten. And Marcus Hale, for once, was not allowed to stand at the back of the line. On the morning the first grain heads bent in the wind, Marcus stood at the edge of the field with Sarah and watched the village gather. No one bowed to him. No one called him savior. No statue rose in the square. Instead, when the first basket of grain came in, Edda took a small handful, placed it in a clay bowl, and handed it to Nomi. Nomi carried it to Marcus. He looked at the bowl, then at the whole village waiting. Sarah crossed her arms. Do not argue. Marcus let out a tired laugh. I was not going to. No one believed him. He took the bowl. This time, he did not need to be ordered to eat first. He understood now what they had been teaching him since the night Vaila changed the law. The first burden was not meant to be carried alone forever. Sometimes the strongest thing a person could do was accept the hands that reached back. Marcus ate one grain, then another, while the wind moved through the new field. Around him, Mare and Hollow stood alive, not rescued into weakness, but returned to its own future. And far beyond the village, in offices that had once trusted numbers more than faces, alien officials began to learn a difficult human lesson. Mercy was not the enemy of order. Sometimes mercy was the only reason order deserved to survive. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. Stories like this remind us that courage is not always loud. Sometimes it looks like someone who stays when leaving would be easier. Sometimes kindness is not soft. Sometimes it is the quiet strength to carry the first burden until others can stand again. Marcus Hale did not ask to be remembered as a hero. He only chose not to let the weakest people pay the highest price. If this story moved you, please give it a like, leave a comment, or share with someone who might need a story about courage, kindness, and quiet strength. And if you enjoy emotional science fiction stories about what makes humans different, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself, and I hope to see you again in the next story.